for us to go beyond the limits of our mind, sometimes we need to kind of be shaken out of our conditions, shaken out of it. Like, you know, sometimes in life when we're faced with challenges, difficulties, even calamities, there's almost this hope. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's almost this hope, this wish that the problem would just go away, that something would happen and we can just make this whole thing disappear. Actually throughout, at least, I don't know about yourself, I don't know about you, but at least for myself, throughout the whole experience, I'm always thinking that wish something could fix it, wish something would fix it. And I've coined a term for it: cancel the calamity. That's my hope. Just cancel this whole thing. But we learn from Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Many of us have heard about the Bhagavad Gita. It's the ancient study of yoga knowledge, and it describes this great conversation between Arjuna and Krishna and the great battlefield of Kurukshetra and what happens there. But after the Bhagavad Gita is the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I've been reading this book, and it describes the life and it describes the life and one of the greatest challenges faced by Parikshit. Parikshit was a son of Arjuna's son, and he ruled the entire planet, not a country or this or that. He ruled the entire planet, and he was an extremely powerful transcendentalist, very, very noble soul, very genuine soul. Somehow, in the course of time, as things happen, whether you want them to or not, he got cursed by a young aspiring brahmana, or you might say a priest, something like that. He got cursed, and the curse was that he was going to die in 7 days. Cursed in this way, he held the power to reverse the curse. He was so powerful as a yogi. If he wanted, he could have just reversed the curse pretty easily. And it was not a joke kind of a curse, like, oh, you'll fall, you'll lose money, he's gonna die in 7 days, and exactly how he's gonna die was also decided, and the Brahmana was powerful, so everyone knew that the curse was gonna work. So here you are, the richest, most powerful person on the planet. He's cursed to die, and he holds within his hand the power to reverse this curse. It's not like he has to depend on a doctor to buy him 5 days of extra life. He had the power. And as I studied his life, and as I studied, that whole incident again, I was actually really reflecting on how he dealt with the situation. His response was, he handed over his entire kingdom, which was not like a small property, it was the entire planet. He handed over his entire kingdom immediately to the next successor. And he left everything and went to the bank of Ganges, the holy river Ganges, and he settled down there to fast until death. sounds really intense, because as soon as a problem comes, my first thing is, how do we solve it? We've got to use our brains, through our intellect, through our power, through our resources. I can solve any problem. But that's not what Maharaj Parikshit or King Parikshit did. And here's another level of interesting turn of events, right? When he sat down to fast until death, it created such an uproar in the universe that all kind of transcendentalists, all kind of sages, wise personalities, yogis from all the different planets came to see him. Not only did the saintly people come to see him, also all kind of demigods, like all kind of people in charge of the different planets in this universe, they all came. It was like the birth of the first international yoga conference or something. They all came. And I'm thinking, I'm going to read a little bit from this book, because I was thinking, these guys, they can reverse the curse easy. Many times in the Bhagavatam, you see some of these personalities are mentioned, and they are bringing dead people back to life. So they had the power. Because if I had those people, I'd be like, well, you guys are here, so I shouldn't get into trouble. I should be protected, right? And we have this idea of what protection means. We have this idea of what success means. But there might be a different thing that's better for us. For us to go beyond the limits of our mind, sometimes we need to kind of be shaken out of our conditions, shaken out of it. Like, A bird trainer was trying to teach a bird how to fly, and she wouldn't learn. Different bird trainers tried, and then this one came along and he taught her in one day. And they asked him, "What did you do?" He says, "Nothing much, I just cut the branch off." And she flew, because the ability is there in the bird to fly. So sometimes challenges are like that. They push us to the area that we don't want to go. We're like holding back, but they push us. Here's what Parikshit did. I'm just going to read a little bit from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's really amazing. It says, "At that time, all the great minds and thinkers, accompanied by their disciples, the sages who could verily sanctify a place of pilgrimage just by their presence, arrived there on the plea of making a pilgrim's journey." So he's not going for pilgrimage. All the saintly people are coming to him, and they're making the excuse to come see him. That's how glorious his response to his situation was. And some of the names are listed, just so you know that, I'm not making this up. From different parts of the universe there arrived great sages like Atri, Chavana, Sharadvin, Arishtanemi, Bhrigu, Vashishta, Parashar, Vishvamitra, Angira, Parusharama, Uttaya, Indra Pramada, Idvama. It's a whole list that goes on, Devala, Arishtasen, Bharadvaj, Gautam. Again, the list goes on and goes on to say Dvaipayana and then Narada. Many of these sages throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, you see, they'll bring dead people back to life. And he's faced with so-called death, which would scare any one of us. And if we had these people, we'd be like, okay, you protect me. But it is interesting that Maharaj Parikshit, when he's faced with these people, with them, he didn't ask them to protect him from death. He asked them something else. He asked them a very important question, and he said that, I'm going to read it verbatim. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both the transcendental and mundane worlds, has graciously overtaken me in the form of a Brahmana's curse, due to my being too much attached to family life. Anyways, he goes on to it, but I just want to focus this point. He says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both the transcendental and mundane world, has overtaken me in the form of a Brahmana's curse. So he doesn't see the curse as a calamity. He sees the curse as the presence of the Supreme. And it's a very different vision. And it's a lot of lesson we can learn. Like when we are faced with challenges, instead of being a victim, instead of seeing that somebody is victimizing us or troubling us or bothering us, we can see it as a blessing from the Lord and take it as an opportunity to grow. And he's seeing it exactly like that. I mean, we can't imitate the behavior. You and I might not be able to act like Maharaj Parikshit. Neither are we faced with such a big challenge, but when we are faced with small challenges, we can start practicing this. He goes on to say, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul. Let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in this way. For I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird or whatever magical thing the Brahmana created bite me. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Krishna. And he asks them a critical question. He says, what is the duty of a person who is about to die? And what is the duty of what is the duty of every person on this planet? He asks this question it's a very powerful question. What is the duty of a man who's about to die? If you actually think about it, all of us are meant to die. All of us are in a sense dying. Some immediately, some after 100 years. But death is certain and we're all going in this direction. So this question of Maharaj Parikshit is very pertinent. What is a duty? And it is really amazing. There are so many saintly people there. There is such a high morale. Everyone's so enthusiastic. Everyone's there. No one's looking for meals. They're so enthused just by each other's presence. And in this transcendental environment where so many sages can bring people back to life, nobody tells him, I'm going to cancel your calamity. But they all say to him, we are going to be there with you till the very end. And it's so powerful because it's kind of like we're thinking they'll solve a problem, but they're saying we're going to help you rise above all this. But we may not be able to see that if we're so fixated on solving the material problem. And actually, that's a lesson for all of us, that when challenges come, we have to rise above the material reality that we are in, because if you sometimes material reality can become so big and so shaky but it's in our mind that is so big and shaky. In reality, material world in itself is just like 25% of the entire creation. It's such a small part. And in this huge material world, there's like one universe that's ours. And in this universe, there's like one planet that we are on. And on this big planet, there's like one city. And on that big city, there's like a little, 10 by 10 room that I am in. How big could my problems be? They couldn't be that big. But we're so fixated on solving them and escaping from them that it becomes so huge in our mind. So that's where the challenge lies. How we approach, how we approach our, like how do we perceive our problems, and what do we expect from the saintly people. Often when I know it's different in the West, like India, you see a saintly person, you always ask for blessings. Like, what's the blessing we want? The blessing we want is take my problems away, and that isn't quite the right attitude, because that's kind of like inherently saying this problem is a bad thing. And that in itself is a defeatist attitude. This problem is making me suffer. That in itself is a victim attitude. A devotee, a transcendentalist will always think, what does Krishna have for me? What does the Supreme Lord have for me to learn in this situation? In that way, our fundamental attitude towards the challenges of life can change. So we can all learn from Maharaj Parikshit. He's not an ordinary person. He's a son of Arjuna. His uncle's Krishna. Such an amazing personality. He could change all of these external realities, but he chooses instead to inquire about what is the duty of a man who is dying. And what ensues is the whole conversation. And all the saintly people are sitting there enthusiastically cheering him on for his so-called death, but they're not seeing the death as a reality. They're seeing the spiritual reality. They're seeing it as how he's going to transcend repeated birth and death. Our challenge isn't the immediate death. Our challenge is we're an eternal soul. We're stuck in a temporary body, which is forcing us to go through repeated birth and death. And we want to stop that cycle. That's our real problem. So please think about it. Thank you so much.